In 1978, Ruth Norman, Uriel, wrote the small book, Your Encounter with Life, Death, and Immortality. This little book gives the beginning student a primer to understanding what happens at the time of death and why it shouldn't be feared. To share with the world this newly published book, she sat down with Dennis McNabb and related these life-changing truths of Unarius.
What they have been experiences is a true experience. This is not some hallucination or imagination. This they do. There are many beings who welcome the entity as he moves out of his body and travels to the, we should say, lower astral worlds. But there are always guides, if you want to call them guides or guardians, their spiritual brothers, who introduce them to this new dimension, new level, of which they have been there many, many times before. But when life's lived progressively, man does move to a higher world, you see. And this is the thing that man must begin to learn what life really is, and that this is not the all, this third dimension.
Is this what happens to everybody when they die then?
Only the beginning. Oh, indeed. Everyone does go into another world, another dimension, another level of consciousness, and it is all dependent upon his own particular level that he is when he makes this changeover. Now, the dyed-in-the-wool materialists, the people who have lived very negative lives, and I could say that in this little group of 55, 60 that we have here at the center twice a week, our sessions, there are many of these students, in fact we could say all, who have become aware of the many destructive lives they have lived, such as in torture chambers, help to commit murder, and even murder of we spiritual beings who have come to help. So you see, they have created for themselves a very, very negative psychic anatomy, a destructive, negative psychic anatomy. Now, such people would not immediately ascend or travel to the higher spiritual worlds where we beings reside and live, because their oscillation, their frequency, their harmonics are very foreign to a higher spiritual world. And so this is why it is so important to gain this understanding of Unarius, to recreate this old psychic anatomy or energy body that man has built throughout the many, many thousands of years, and from and on many other physical worlds, that he has built it from his many thousands of past lifetimes and on many other physical worlds.
Okay, so your consciousness or your psychic anatomy, your soul travels through these physical worlds.
Right, indeed.
And so if whatever you conceive then, when you die, or these death after death, because you've lived life after life, you go to where you understand, what you understand.
That's
If you think you're going to be 6 feet under, you're going to be 6 feet under.
That's right. That's very true. For these people who do not believe in the continuity of life, they have a great difficulty. Eventually, some of we brothers can possibly get to them, and what it amounts to is practically having to dig them out from the deep, deep depths of the ground, because that is where their consciousness is. And as we get into this understanding of life, we learn that consciousness is really the all-importance. The psychiatrists and the psychologists of today, they say mind. Well, it is not in the gray matter within the head. It is not in the gray matter. It is in the energy body. This is where all these experiences of these past lives have been stored, in this energy body. And my students are proving this because they are constantly drawing from one or another of these previous life experiences, repetitiously repeating these previous lives. And only when man begins to become aware of this process, can he sever this oscillation or contact, we'll call it. Oscillation meaning the word energy flowing from one point to another. So man as a whole is living again one of his previous lifetimes, whether he was a ditch digger or an electronic technician that climbs the telephone pole, the man that works in the drugstore. Whatever he's doing, he is only repeating what he did in his some previous lifetime.
How do we know that was a past lifetime? What's the proof?
Well,
you say the students know they lived these lives. Do they
good.
remember these lives?
Good question. Man does not remember until he opens his consciousness, and I call it until he wakes up. When he will begin to wonder about these things, when he will begin to really wonder, why cannot I break loose from this house or this position? Why do I have to remain with this husband or this wife when we have such friction and we can't stand each other? These are all indications of the past that you're reliving, and very many times when that particular past has been thoroughly relived, then the pull or the magnetic pull or stress from that past dies away, and the person no longer has a pull to that position, place, or person, or whatever it may be.
So we talk about one of the most difficult experiences of life is when a person or someone's loved one is terminally ill, is going through maybe months or years of a disease that's a deteriorating disease, like cancer, for instance, cancer. And you're saying now the experiences that we have, we're going through these various lives for the experience. Why would we why would we bring about or have a disease like cancer that's lingering, where you've got time, months, years to think about your death, and very often that's the most traumatic part of the experience for the loved ones, for the person undergoing the disease. Why all of that?
That's so very true, Dennis. It's very true. And if man really understood the principles that we are teaching, and it is utterly impossible to get them all in any short 30 minutes, he wouldn't linger like this. He could work out these past he's just reliving. For instance, cancer. I have found that cancer very often is the result of happening, say, in some war, where man has had a sharp instrument thrust in, a sword or a knife wound or gunshot wound, where it has penetrated the flesh, and it has marred electronically his energy body. Now, when that individual will again arrive at the point, that same similar cycle in another lifetime, he will again, this negative energy will again be into effect, come into focus, and it will not be able to be connected from his psychic to his physical consciousness. As they continue to be concerned and worry over their problem, whatever it is, they block off all the possibility for spiritual healing to come in.